All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here and then we'll start the show. Hanging out on this fine Monday morning. Boom and boom. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is the 24th of June and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by Scott Kennedy. Scott, how are you doing? You feeling rested from your weekend? What's going on? Man, 1 week left until July.
No, not rested. Drove down to Florida, back down to Florida on Thursday, and drove back yesterday afternoon. But easy drive. I rented the old Chrysler Pacifica, and dude, it's awesome.
Okay.
I'm
Fun.
like, if you can get over the stigma of driving a minivan, it's freaking awesome. I can't get over it enough to buy one, so I rented one, and oh yeah, captain's chairs, kids in the back, nice separation. Stereo system was awesome. Nice. It was so yeah, I rented the minivan for this trip.
There you go. Do they have the TVs in the back too?
No, because nobody watches TV anymore, but they do have their
Yeah,
charges in the back of the seats that you can plug your devices right in there. So
in college, my buddies and I, one of my friends, the family let him borrow the family minivan, and it had like an old like box TV in the back seat. And we drove from, I think it was 17 hours from Iowa to Florida for spring break, and just played like the 64 the entire time, like Mario Party and Super Smash Brothers, and
goes
just the drive.
fast.
Yeah, that makes it go by pretty darn fast, and did it overnight as well. So it was a good time. I don't have ill feelings about it driving a minivan, other than it feels like you're driving a boat. Right, the start stop is not ideal.
They've gotten better, and then we'll move on from our car talk. But this wasn't much different than driving most SUVs, which are car based now anyway. There's very few body on frame SUVs around anymore. Like the 4Runner's still one, but most of them are car based anyway.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. So let's say hello to some folks in the chat talking about driving a van. That's like the Broncos these days, right? To maybe a slow start stop, but we'll see what happens. We got Gordon coming in saying crazy. These days, all I hear is negative BS about the Broncos, from NFL Network to every news outlet besides Broncos Zone. Everyone talks crap about the Broncos. To all the haters, 2 middle fingers. Gordon, the lashings will continue until morale improves. The Broncos have been a disappointing team, and they did a few moves that a lot of people don't like, and a lot of people in the NFL do not like Sean Payton, so they're already painted in a negative light with that kind of stuff. So Denver has not won enough games. They've been a pretty perennial disappointment the last 10 years. So until the results on the field start to pull the other way, people will continue to talk crap about them in the NFL general, by and large. But hey, once they start winning, the NFL wants their money makers to be good. And the Broncos have a large fan base, a lot of pull. And it would be nice if a team like anybody, but specifically Denver or the Raiders, not for us, but the NFL, could step up and challenge the Chiefs as well. Give us some interesting AFC games down the stretch in our race, rather than the ho-hum. They're just automatically in the playoffs. So the crap talking will continue, but as soon as Denver starts winning, it'll be like, oh, they're back, baby. They're back, especially the 24/7 news cycle. I mean, we'll get the positives. It's just they ended on a low note. They made a move that a lot of people didn't agree with Bo Nix. Bad taste with Russell Wilson. Once we start to get new results, things will change fast.
Well, I just think that the two keys that you hit on, Nick, is from the outside looking in, this is a step backwards team in order to rebuild. You know, you don't take on an $85 million dead cap hit because you're expecting to compete for Super Bowls. You cut Justin Simmons, you move on, you let Josie Jewell walk, you let Lloyd Cushenberry sign a big deal elsewhere, and you didn't replace them with, again, from the outside looking in, with net positives. You have drafted and hopefully get your future quarterback, but from, again, from a national perspective, on the outside looking in, this is a rebuilding year for the Denver Broncos, where they have slashed their assets in order to build back up. This is a rebuilding year. Could it be more than that? Sure. It can end up being more than that. But the Broncos won't say it, but everybody else is, including us. This is a rebuilding season. The expectation shouldn't be that you're going to improve on an 8-9 year. If you do, great. But the moves that this team made don't indicate that they are shooting for the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously shooting for the
You know what I
playoffs.
mean? It's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
expectations going in aren't,
yeah.
oh yeah, playoffs are, if Sean Payton doesn't make the playoffs this year, he's going to be fired. No, come on. No.
Yeah, unless it's like, you're 0-17 and just chaos in there,
Mhm.
it would take a Nathaniel Hackett level incompetent job for that to happen, and I just don't see any way that could happen.
But I think another 8-9 season with Bo Nix looking like a future quarterback of this team would be considered a success.
Yeah, I am with you without a doubt on that one, Scott. And again, the dead cap hit, the lack of top 100 picks the last few seasons, rookie quarterback this season. It's an evaluation season,
Mhm.
so it's anything you get from them, playoffs wins wise, is gravy for me this year. We need to find out what happens with Bo. We got Monica coming in and says, "Hey, Scott and Nick, PFF graded Quinn Miners as underrated. What are your thoughts on him?" Miners is one of the most powerful run blockers in the NFL. He has good athleticism. I'm glad he got a little bit of more weight back on for the power based scheme versus the zone scheme. And he still has some issues with pass protection from time to time. He can get a little bit out over his skis, as they like to say, and that gets him off balance. And quicker offensive linemen can beat him. But he's very strong. He's got good length, and he is improving in pass protection. So he is going to get paid handsomely in the offseason, I would assume. This is year 4 for Miners already. Are we here? So he will get there's I really would be shocked if Denver lets him walk. They let Cushenberry go. You can move on from Bowles pretty easily. You have a rookie quarterback contract. You're going to have money to play with this offseason. Miners is underrated until we see that money come in this offseason and be like, oh yeah, he's one of the top 5 paid guards in football because he's an ascending player and really talented.
Yeah, and Miners, as you said, the key for me right there was ascending. He was good as a rookie.
Mhm.
He was really good as a sophomore, in his second year. And then last year, he was an all-pro, Pro Bowl level. 1, 2, 3. Comparing him to Lloyd Cushenberry,
Mhm.
he was awful, pretty awful to
Good.
okay. Again, he got paid like he was an all-pro guy. Hit the open market. Okay, great. The market exploded. Big. You hit the market. You hit the open market when there was a $35 million increase in the salary cap. Good for you. But nobody from Broncos country is gnashing their teeth because Lloyd Cushenberry left, and everybody say, "Oh no, we should have given him the 14 million guaranteed." No, come on, there isn't anybody but saying that. Now, when the market for the top guards is 20 million, you're going to be upset when Miners gets 20 million somewhere else. That will upset you. So again, I agree on that. We had this, Nick and I on the Falcons podcast last hour had this almost exact conversation about Chris Lindstrom. Chris Lindstrom is one of the best offensive linemen in football. He is also a guard. And because the Falcons have been cheeks for the last 7 years, Chris Lindstrom does not get the love he deserves. I'm going to just insert Quinn Miners here. He's 2 years behind Lindstrom. So Lindstrom's done it for 3 years now. Lindstrom had a year last year that put him top 3 in PFF. And each year has gotten better. Top 100 lists come out. Guess who's not on it, Nick? Quinn Miners.
Yep.
Why? Because he's got 1 year under his belt doing that. 2, he's been playing for a losing team.
Yep. Also, he plays
Quinn Miners is good. He's really good. And he'll get paid, most importantly, the Matthew Stafford Detroit Lions effect. He will get paid what he is worth.
Yep. Especially with what the guard market did this last season. Now, granted, some of that might be because your edge rushers, wide receivers, tackles, quarterbacks of the same caliber do not even hit the open market, where teams are letting guards of that caliber hit the open market a lot. But Denver doesn't have enough good, positive players that they're paying to let a guard go. If it was like between a wide receiver or a guard, maybe you have to let Quinn Miners go in that situation. But Denver doesn't, not a situation where you can let any talent that's been developed go, especially with the money that they're going to have coming their way after this season.
Yeah, and again, if you draft a tackle, Bo Nix hits, there's the big one. You draft an offensive tackle next year, you slide him in a bowl spot, You take Bowles' money and give it to minors, you're neutral.
Mhm.
You're neutral on your pay scale.
Yep.
I didn't have to go up, and I got to keep minors, and I just got my tackle for the future. Garrett Bowles is a free agent after this season, and you get about $20 million back in payroll. So just shift that money over in this column, draft a left tackle, and you're neutral on your salary cap, and you still have a ton of money to play with in the 2025, good Lord, 2025 season.
It's still 1998 in my mind, Scott. I'm still a 5-year-old. We got Michael coming in here saying, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Good to see you, Michael. Thank you so much for the support. I know it's June. It's the dead season, but man, you help us a heck of a lot with these shows and keeping the lights on. So God bless you for that. Hope you're doing well there. Hopefully you're not melting out there in Tucson. I guess everywhere but the West Coast is just being smelted this week by the sun. So good luck. Hopefully everyone's staying cool. It's gosh, I think it's probably like 60 degrees here out in Seattle today. We got Desert Creature coming in here saying I pay no attention to negative BS and the world goes on nicely. Yeah, it's we'll see what happens. I mean, it's the offseason and Denver's a questionable team right now, and all these rankings, because we don't have anything new to go on, it's just kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If we were 4 games in and Denver was 3-1, the tune would be different. But unfortunately, it's just where people think Denver is right now, and it'll be up to them to prove them wrong. And we'll see. Only time will tell. Dave Glassman coming in with the hearts. Great to see you. David Youngkin, morning, everyone. Hoping everyone had a great weekend. I had a good weekend. Took the first little family vacation down to Oregon, right by Mount Hood, the north volcano on the Oregon-Washington coast or border there. And it was a good time. Really fun. Did some swimming in Lake Trillium. Hung out with some friends. It was good overall, but I'll tell you, Scott, man, packing for a newborn is unbelievable. My wife and I shared like one backpack, and the car was full
You know
because
what's
you have to
worse? Trying
bring.
to fly,
I
carrying all that stuff around. You slim up real quickly. And you also learn how your mind changes after you've had a child and you hear a screaming baby on the plane. Doesn't freak you out like it did when I was in my 20s. Now it's just like, oh yeah, it's okay. Thank God it's not my kids screaming. I'm just gonna put on my headphones. We understand. It's all good. Good luck to you.
God bless. Yep. Well, he was well behaved. It was great. Congress comes in and says, "Do not pay a guard $20 million a year." Well, then you're going to let talent walk. Probably in that case, do you just trade Quinn Miners right now? If that's the situation, is that detrimental to your rookie quarterback and your ability to run the football to help take the ball out of the quarterback's hands in a lot of situations? Denver's in a tough spot. The issue is that you don't really have other talent to pay, right? And it's the talent that you're going to be able to otherwise allocate that money to is going to be equivalent or worse than Quinn Miners. The valuable guys that you're resigning where you're actually getting, I think, more equitable return on investment don't hit the market, right? It's like guards are getting paid this that are hitting the market because teams aren't letting their good interior defensive linemen, edge rushers, wide receivers, offensive tackles hit the market. So you're seeing your guards, your tight ends, your linebackers, your safeties end up hitting the market. We're seeing, even though those guys are still valuable on the market and getting paid, it's the teams that like, okay, we'd rather keep the wide receiver than the tight end. And then those guys hit the market. So I know it's a double-edged sword, Conga, but you're going to have to pay somebody. You have the rookie quarterback contract in theory. And we know that Sean Payton, even before this last offseason where guards got paid like we've never seen them before, Sean Payton really valued the entire 5 of the offensive line. He paid guards. He drafted interior offensive line early and often. So I think it would be pretty shocking if Denver didn't pay him. And I'm a little bit more lenient with paying your own guys at non-value positions that much versus the finite resource of draft picks that are like linebackers, guards, first round. I don't know. Paying elite linebackers and guards that you already have on your team, a little bit more okay with that, especially with where Denver's at.
So getting into this, there are 12 guards in the NFL whose average contract is above 15 million right now. 12. There are 6 who are over 18 and there are 4 over 20. So you decide again that is he worth paying that? And again, if you have the draft picks to counteract some of that balance. So like I just said, Conga, as I was talking about, as you're building your offensive line, if you've got your quarterback, there's the key right there. Now, if I let Garrett Bowles walk, I just shift that money over to Quinn Miners to keep my best player on offense, and I'm still neutral on the cap. So $20 million nowadays, yes, it's a lot of money. It's 8% of your total salary cap. And you can obviously finagle the numbers with extensions and all that type of stuff, where that $20 million average salary is a $6 million cap hit, which is 3% of your total cap hit. And then it goes up, then you restructure with an ascending player, with a young player. People say the cap doesn't mean anything. With young players who are playing at a high level, it doesn't, because I can keep extending until they start declining. Then it becomes a problem. So $20 million, if Quinn Miners plays again at an all-pro level, he's going to get $20 million from somewhere, and you will have the money to do it without adversely affecting other players on your team.
And it doesn't even have to be Garrett Bowles.
I'd advocate for it. He's your best player on offense.
Yeah. And he's not to be cliche, but he's a little bit of a tone setter too, right? If you want to be a big physical mauling team, he's somebody who you can almost, not a cheat code, but like an impact player where it's like, okay, we're going to run behind the right guard here. You know, you're going to get some displacement at the line of scrimmage. So he's a very valuable asset for a guard. The other aspect, Scott,
real quick, let me hit this, Nick. I want to hit this question, and we'll put a bow in it. I understand, but no guard is worth $20 million a year. Of those 4 guards being paid $20 million per year, how many were on the championships paid? There's only one championship team. It's the Kansas City Chiefs, and they don't have a guy on a rookie contract. They've got a guy on about a $50 million contract. But the answer for this one, Joe Thuney is on Thuney, help me out there, is $16 million, and his cap hit per percentage of the Kansas City Chiefs cap hit is 9%. Well, the cap is just based on what they have allocated. It was 9%. 9% of $250 million is more like, well, I can't do the math in my head, but it's close to 20 something. So to your point, Thuney is getting the equivalent of a $20 million card contract for the Kansas City Chiefs. The other one, Landon Dickerson, playoff team. Chris Lindstrom, Atlanta Falcons, no. Robert Hunt just signed as a free agent, and that move has been thrashed. Quentin Nelson is an overpay, Indianapolis Colts. I don't think he is playing at a level of a top 5 guard. Zach Martin, Dallas Cowboys, playoff team, arguably the best guard in the league. Elton Jenkins, I know you like him a lot, Nick. 26 years old, $17 million, playoff team.
Yeah.
Most of those guys are on playoff teams.
And also the Chiefs
or on their first year of their contract.
And the Chiefs are also about to allocate even more resources in their interior offensive line, because there's no way in hell they're going to let Creed Humphrey walk.
Right.
Top 2 center in football. They'll probably have to let Smith walk. I don't know if those contracts line up at the same time, but it does matter.
That's where it goes. I need rookie contracts so I can afford to keep my own guys.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not having rookie contract and a quarterback on a rookie contract, as Nick has said for the 4 years now we've been doing the show together, there's a cheat code
if they're good.
But you don't have the rookies on. That's the detriment of all these draft trades and stuff is the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton is you don't have the talented guys on rookie contracts, the Pat Surtains of the world, the top 10 players at their positions on rookie contracts. You don't have them.
And with the draft picks you had, you did not hit above average so far. We'll see how the 2022 and 2023 class shakes out still. The story is yet to be written, but that's one reason people are down on the team, right? There's just a dearth of talent, those young ascending players. And Congress, it's just maybe they will trade him. I don't think so, but because Denver just does not have a lot of people that they would even pay or keep right now. There has to be at some point you need to keep talent, young talent, and pay them on your team versus the constant, kind of like the penny pinching, cost cutting stuff that you see teams like doing with moves like moving minors before paying them.
When you're ready to start building up again, which again, we started the show saying the Broncos haven't signaled that that's what they're planning on doing. You want guys like this on your team. And Conga, with 1 year left on his contract, who's trading for him? You're not going to trade for him. Just let him in a free agent. Let him.
Yep.
I'm not going to send you a big high pick with 1 year left on his deal. If you're not going to pay him, then
Yeah.
I'm not going to trade for him. He's only got 1 year left on his deal.
And also somebody to say, well, then just play the compensatory pick game with him. If Denver didn't play the compensatory pick game this last year when they had their hands tied behind their back financially, they're sure as hell not going to do it next offseason.
Yeah, Sean Payton's not going to sit back and not spend in free agency in order to play the comp pick game.
If it was ever going to happen,
you don't have enough good young players to not replenish the guys that you're losing through free agency.
If it was ever going to happen, it was going to be this season. Final point here, becoming a Quinn Miners episode. But the way the contract works, even though you mentioned Garrett Bowles, you could even retain Garrett Bowles and not have that allocation pivot be the Bulls contract, because a lot of times with the way the contract is worth, the signing bonuses split evenly across the duration of the contract, but the actual roster hits can be different. And it could be Ben Powers' contract will set in 2 years, and you'll see Quinn Miners explode once Powers is off the book. So you could actually allocate it with Powers' contract rather than Bulls and not put yourself in a position of weakness at left tackle, because you could be using the dead cap hit coming free as that money that you have coming down.
My thoughts on Bulls a little bit, Nick, is if you didn't do it this year, are you going to do it next year when he is a true free agent? Or are you more likely to lose him as a free agent? But we still have time for that deal to get done that we've talked about. But my gut tells me Garrett Bowles is playing somewhere else next year.
I think you're probably right, but it could still pivot the other way, especially if you have a young rookie quarterback and he's playing well, and how hard it is to find even average starting caliber,
especially if you don't draft them ever.
Yep. Exactly. Gary Palmer, 1999. God bless you, Gary. Thank you so much coming in here, making sure that Scott's head can stay shiny and Nick can add new hats to his wall behind him. Says, good morning, Nick and Scott. Money-wise, whatever the market says, only goes up. Yeah, football so far has just been continuing to expand and expand. I am already, not preemptively, I'm annoyed, Scott, like how many different packages and subscribers and whatever you have to have next season to watch different football games. Like they're on like 62 different platforms. Like maybe we need to bundle these for a thing like cable. I don't know where we're at, but I do have means of watching the games. But yeah, it's frustrating.
So far, they haven't put them on one that I don't already have.
Okay. That's
Netflix.
Good.
I've thought about canceling Netflix, but hell, I said when they picked up Lucifer when Fox dropped them, and like the main time, I was like, I'll be a Netflix customer forever now. I watch a lot of the replay stuff, but they've got Netflix, Amazon Prime. I'm on a first name basis with FedEx and our UPS guy because of Amazon Prime, for God's sakes. And then NFL Network is part of my cable package. What else?
Is it going to be on Paramount at some point, or
I don't pay for Paramount.
There's a bunch coming on. I think Netflix just paid for rights of stuff. I mean,
but yeah, I got the Netflix. Did Netflix have the Christmas games?
I think
and then wait until Apple TV and their $1 trillion. You've heard me say this before, Nick. You wait until the tech giants decide to start doing this, and broadcast media is in deep doo-doo.
They are. I mean, NFL Network might be going down here pretty soon, but that's another conversation to be had. Gary, thank you so much. Mr. Roush in here says, morning, BFB. I like that goat picture there. Jamal Killing's in the house. Great to see you, Jamal. Roy is in the house, too. We saw Roy over on the Falcons, now hanging out with us here. Michael Evans says, welcome to my world, Cards fan in here. Man, Arizona is scorching right now. Hope you're doing well.
He's just talking about, being a selling team. I don't think the Broncos are a selling team if they're winning.
No.
They don't dump Von Miller if they're winning. They don't drop Bradley Chubb if they're winning. That's the last two deadline type deals we saw. And again, the what ifs, it was fun. I still think it was probably worth it to go on that winning streak and beat the Chiefs, et cetera, to see what is possible with Sean Payton as your head coach. But for this year, that winning streak probably hurts you more than anything.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we would have been sellers at the deadline and picked up and just burned it all down and full rebuild. Now you're still kind of half in, half out with Sutton, with Bowles, and who knows what you still could have gotten the same quarterback. That's up for debate. would you have taken Nix as QB2 or QB3, or would you have gone in a different direction? Either way, you've got your hope of the quarterback for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're still kind of half in, half out on some of the rebuilding moves.
lot of turnover here. We probably still another offseason or two before it's completely built in Sean Payton's image and getting out of the Russell Wilson fallout, both trade and draft pick wise. Randy says even if they start winning, media likes to underrate the Broncos. Even with Manning, the media was still trashing them. One good thing is the Broncos thrive as underdogs. I don't know if I agree with you, Randy, in terms of Denver being totally thrashed when they had Manning here, other than, when you're at the top, there'll always be some doubters and haters, but they were talking about them. Then right now, Denver isn't even hated. They're just a complete afterthought, which is probably a worse place to be. I mean, how often do we see, even during his peak, obviously that's not anymore, but people hating on LeBron or whatever team LeBron is on because they're at the top. That's kind of where Denver was at during the Manning years. So I think those voices are amplified. The disrespect is amplified more in our heads than the praise. So that sticks out a little bit, but I don't recall it that way so much. Denver was consistently talked about. You had pretty much a van living there for NFL Network covering them, even though they're not the Cowboys or the Giants or the Steelers in terms of the eyeballs and the fans. But yeah, I think they were not underdogs then, but they're very much underdogs right now and an afterthought in the shadow of the NFL and especially in the shadow of Kansas City with Mahomes and Reed.
Yeah, the way to be, is the phrase goes, loved, hated, but never ignored. Right now, you're more on the ignored, and I said it an hour ago because it's a universal truth among fans of all ilks. The announcers don't like us, and the refs are screwing us. That's just a gimme for all fans. Period. That's a constant on the equation. So those kind of cancel each other out. The
Adam
media
Strange
hates us, the announcers hate us. You can lump those in together, and the refs are screwing us
every single time. The only ref that screws us is Bill Vinovich, but that's for another time.
Adam Strange, as a Chelsea fan, there is a referee. His name's Anthony Taylor. You get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, and Chelsea's historically been pretty good. And they have like a 2.3 average points per game. Games that Anthony Taylor is not reffing, and it's like 1.1 with games that Anthony Taylor is reffing. I'm like, all right, there's something to this one, y'all.
Yeah. Bill Vinovich had a crazy record with Peyton Manning specifically. Peyton obviously destroyed almost everybody. He might have had a losing record in games that Bill Vinovich reffed, and it was it's enough of an outlier. It's what is going on here?
Yeah.
And he also reffed, of course, that 2012 Ravens-Broncos game where they let the Ravens just assault the Broncos receivers. The pick six was obvious pass interference. I mean, we don't have to get into it, but I'm not a Bill Vinovich
paranoid
fan.
Doesn't mean they aren't out to get me.
What does the data say, right, Scott? Adam Strange, what's up, Broncos Maniacs? Kathy comes in. Good to see you, Kathy. Hope you're doing well. Always appreciate you. Robot of Doom, top of the morning to you, gents. We got Greg Smith in the house. Morning, Denver Broncos for life. Always great to see you. Dennis Miller, we definitely need Miners, Cooper, and Browning. All three of those guys are going to be free agents at the end of the season. I would be pretty shocked if all three are back, especially with your draft picks and allocations at the edge rusher spot. That if I was a betting man, Scott, right now, I'd put probably edge rusher, your number one most likely draft pick, first round pick in the 2025 draft as well. But we'll see what Ellis, Browning, Cooper, and Benito do. But it is a spot. I don't think you'll see Cooper and Browning back next season.
Coming back to the discussion, a little bit of the offensive line discussion is, money on the offensive line is never a bad investment. And Congress, reminding us of Jawan James. And Conga, you did say something that, overpaying for free agents can be bad. I agree. And technically, if you let Miners' contract run out, he is a free agent. However, I do like the idea of paying market value for your own guys. It incentivizes the players on your own team. Look, they will take care of me when I get to that level. And again, are you paying an over market price, or are you paying market price? And then you use your draft picks to offset some of your high players. That's team building. We're not building the Broncos, Nick. You are, but we have fun doing that. And I think you can afford, if Miners has another season like last season where he's playing at a Pro Bowl level, He's going to get 20 million from somewhere, and the Broncos can't afford it. Can afford that without really taking money away from anybody else. It's got to, Nick, when we had the conversation with the fumble guy, Melvin Gordon, and it's the contract. I'm like, well, you have money. So what, you still have money left over. What about his contract is keeping you from doing another move? Nothing really was. Then the problem was, okay, we didn't like him coming in over Phillip Lindsay, and he was for the Chargers and he fumbles. Okay, valid. But his contract wasn't a detriment to the team.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not always a big fan of paying running backs that much
I know
money.
that's different, but
yeah,
that's different. If you can afford to pay Quinn Miners market value without it negatively impacting the rest of your team.
It would be nice if you were in a situation where you had so much talent at value positions that were worth bigger contracts that you had to make a tough decision. But Denver really isn't there. Like we talked about to start the episode, you're not going to be in. You're not really concerned about losing a top emerging wide receiver or defensive line or edge rusher or cornerback. Even you're going to have cap. This is the year where you're going to be squeezed. After this, assuming you don't make some bad decisions down the line. I didn't really love the contract or restructures that you had of Powers and McGlinchey because you're on the hook a little bit longer. I get to understand the flexibility. Especially if you don't spend every penny, you can just kick it. But that's something to consider. And we do got to talk about the topic at hand here. But good question here from Keith. Says, will we regret not paying Cushenberry, pay Miners, but not Cush? I don't think Denver, even with a rookie quarterback contract, wants to live in a world where you're paying all 5 of your starting offensive linemen second or third contracts. It's pretty hard to keep an offensive line together like that. So I think just allocation of resources and budget wise, they probably made the decision to let Cush go with thoughts and the vision of how much it's going to cost to maintain Miners. And Cushenberry got a huge contract, second or third highest paid center in football. So he's it's going to be an interesting one for Denver, but I think they probably thought they probably couldn't pay both those guys.
Yeah, Cushenberry got 4 years, $50 million with 30 guaranteed. So, the math I like to say is it's 50 divided by 4. That ends up being about 12 and a half with 30 guaranteed. So it's basically a 2-year, $30 million deal. Did you want to drop $15 million a year on Lloyd Cushenberry? I didn't. Not that I have any say in it, but if we're in here discussing resource allocation, which is half the fun of the show, I don't want $15 million a year into Lloyd Cushenberry.
Nope. Yeah, me neither. I'd rather keep Miners at 20 than Cush at 15. But getting into it here, Doug Farrar, who does good work, been writing for a long time, multiple books out there. Did you say something, Scott? Sorry, did I mispronounce his name? Okay, sorry, I thought I heard you when I'm pulling up the article here and reading. He listed the most underrated player on every single team in the NFL, and for the Broncos, he listed edge rusher Jonathon Cooper. He writes Cooper lasted until the 7th round of the 2021 draft, despite a somewhat productive career at Ohio State, in which he broke through the Buckeyes' insane pass rush depth to show what he could do. He had 3 sacks and 33 total pressures on just 228 pass rushing reps in 2020, and he was right there for the Broncos when they took him 240th overall. Cooper had the same challenge early in the NFL as he once again had to break through limited reps to prove that he belonged. It all kicked in last season as Cooper set career high in sacks, 9, total pressures 55 on 421 pass rushing snaps. Eventually, Cooper tends to prove that he should be playing more often than he is, and he does it against the best possible competition, and he has a good rep against Penny Sewell in that butt kicking that Denver had in Detroit last season, where we really saw the Broncos defensive line get it handed to them by probably the best offensive line in football in the Detroit Lions. I think Cooper from a national perspective is certainly overrated. I think he's somebody that you are fine if he is your starting edge. If you have a superstar across,
you said overrated. Do you mean underrated?
I think. Oh yes, I think he's underrated from a national perspective. Excuse me. He's not really dynamic enough as a player where other teams are going to be game planning for him or anything. I mean, we saw Malik Reed have, good seasons where this production was good, but he was only worth a day 3 pick swap in the end. But Cooper's been a solid player. He's fine at setting the edge. He's going to get an okay contract, whatever comes next for him. I just don't think he's much of a difference maker. He's one of those ones that I think a lot of the value comes from how cheap he is right now on that rookie contract, but not a difference maker, not somebody opposing teams are going to game plan for. You're happy to have him, but I don't think he's a priority, must sign, impact, needle mover kind of player that you don't have to have that for every position. Pass rush is a spot where you need to hunt for those guys.
Yeah, and the one thing I took issue with, they got the old eyebrow raise, was he should be playing more. Well, he had the most snaps of any of the defensive line, of the front five. The only guys that had more snaps than him are the defensive backs and the linebackers.
Yep.
So as far as the rotation goes, Cooper played a lot.
Yeah,
now my question is when you start asking stuff like overrated, underrated, what's he rated? Now we just did this conversation. We just, and we talked a lot about Miners, and this ties right into it as being, who do we think the most underrated player is on the team? Miners is in that conversation. Well, Miners should be a top 100 guy. You can make that argument pretty easily, and he wasn't, okay? But who's rating Jonathon Cooper? Where is he rated? He's not a top 100 guy, but where would he be? It's like, oh, well, he's ranked this, so he's underrated. Well, he's not ranked anywhere, except by PFF, and he had a really good season. Is he an absolute home run hit for a 7th round pick? Yeah. Yeah, he was. Did he outplay his draft status by a large margin? Yes, he did. That's a hit. When we're chalking up hits and misses, Jonathon Cooper is a big hit as a draft pick. But as far as underrated, overrated, what's he rated? I can't answer that question.
Yeah. To me, I think he's somewhere teetering between a fine starter or a very good 3rd, 4th edge rusher. I think ideally, again, I'm very defensive line, pass rush, pill brained, whatever you want to say, where I want monsters up front and I want waves of monsters. And maybe that 2015 Broncos team are watching so much college football has me biased on what a defensive line needs to look like in order to field a hunting level defense. And I think Cooper, if you're starting with him, you need to have he needs to be your probably 4th best guy out of your top 6 if you have him out there. And that's fine. You can be that guy. But right now he's probably Denver's last season, the year before, 2nd or 3rd guy. And that's just not even close to being good enough. You need difference makers up front. So he's a guy that you love to have, especially on the rookie contract. Good defenses always have those guys, but is he good enough where I'm prioritizing him to be paid? He doesn't have the tools or the upside of Browning, but he's been available. He doesn't have the speed and pass rush ability of Benito, and he doesn't have the cost control or youth of Ellis. So, if I was those 4 guys listed there, who's the odd man out next year? I would probably say Cooper. It could be Browning again because your best ability is availability, and he has not shown that, but he's much more physically gifted as a player, more perceived upside. We've heard Peyton talk about him a couple times this season already with Browning, how far along he is compared to last season with the injuries. So we'll see. Cooper's a very good, useful piece. It's just I don't think he is overrated, underrated. He's just a solid player that you're happy to have, and you need players like him if you're going to field a good team.
Going back to the discussion of his draft status as a 7th round pick, where I can rank him is where he's getting paid relative to his peers.
Mm-hmm.
So as a 7th round pick last year, he had a base salary of $940,000. His cap hit was $965,000. So relative to his production, he's incredibly underrated, underpaid. That's where I can rank him. But on the 4th year of a deal, if you survive those 3 years and you get the non-guaranteed 4th year as a non-first round draft pick, he more than tripled his money. So going into his 4th season, he's at like $3.2 million. That sounds about right. As far as, where should I be paying him? What's he going to earn on his next contract? It'll probably be somewhere between 4 and 6 when he signs gets a new contract. On his 2nd contract will be somewhere between 4 and 6. So I don't know that he's underappreciated, underpaid. He's appreciated enough to get that next contract. The 4th year non-guaranteed, it's not like a 5th year option, but it's close. But it tripled his money. He's going to make as much money in this contract as he's made in his last 3 years. Good for him. And he's earned it. But I think that's about where he should be.
Yeah, he's probably played at a third round level, I think, which is good. I mean, again, not a difference maker, but somebody who's earned a lot of snaps. And some of that's a little bit of the self-fulfilling prophecy too. Like there's I think Broncos posted something the other day where it's like, oh, that 2021 draft class, look how many snaps these guys have played. Well, the roster has been pretty bad and you've not been a good team. So is that a good thing? I mean, if it was like a team that was winning a lot and you're getting a lot of snaps from those guys, that means something. But if you're a bad team and those guys are getting snaps, well, I don't know if that's a good thing.
I used to say that about all the all freshman teams in the SEC. Yes. Oh man, he was all freshman SEC at Vanderbilt in Kentucky. Kentucky's pretty good now, but it's like, yes, it's because they're the only ones playing freshmen are the bad teams.
Yeah. Yep. Unless you have that superstar 5-star guy that came in with
right.
unbelievable.
There's the exception. I know.
Yes. Gosh, man. Do you see Josh Downs transfer to Ohio State, the superstar safety, and he might be getting some running back and offensive snaps for them this year because he's such a dynamic player. It's an inevitability. We're going to get Georgia, Ohio State this year. That's I think that would be shocking. Ohio State's unbelievable, and with Saban out, Georgia is ready to run the SEC for a bit. But
what's interesting to me is Florida's schedule. Florida, Billy Napier, and then we'll move on from college football, but there are some guys to watch. Like Nick's probably already knows who DJ Lagway is. There was an analytics done on everybody's schedule. If you are the 12th best team in the country and you played Florida's schedule, you played Georgia's schedule, and they did it for everybody, what would your record be? The number 12 team in the country playing Florida's schedule was projected to be 7-6.
SEC, baby.
God bless.
Yeah.
I was like, that's Penn State. Penn State's right now the number 12 team in the country. If they played Florida's schedule, they'd be projected at 7-6. Good gracious.
Yeah. And
Robot of Doom says you guys should also do a college football podcast. Doesn't hurt to give it a shot. Robot of Doom, I haven't been in college football long enough to be able to do that with any kind of credibility. I could talk, 80s and 90s and stuff, but I just haven't watched it in the last 4 years that I've been doing NFL stuff. However, I will be watching a lot of college football this year. My profession, my workflow has changed. So, maybe next year, Nick and I'll kick it off.
I'll say it's going to be hard to find the amount of time to dictate being an expert on it when already doing the Falcons draft and Broncos stuff with another full-time job and a little soon to be 6-month-old here. So, but anyway, Jonathon Cooper listed underrated for the Broncos. Besides him, Scott, guys who come to mind for me as being underrated. We kind of already talked about Quinn Miners.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can actually say that. I don't think that we can say Courtland Sutton is.
I do. I absolutely do.
Okay.
I think I can absolutely say, especially with the talk
with the Broncos fans.
From the Broncos fans.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of that is the PR that's being put out. This guy's got a contract. He should be, he's greedy, this, and this, because it's just inevitable, y'all, that fans will side with their teams. That's their longtime love. And it starts coming down. Oh, he's not that good anyway. We talked about Drake London. Is he a top 100 player? All right, right now for a game tomorrow, you want Courtland Sutton or Drake London? I think it's arguable. I think it's close.
I'll probably take London.
I think it's close. I think Sutton is really, really good.
Yeah. And I get a quarterback who played with his skill set where London did not.
He's healthy. He's healthy again, but I think, but did he have the amount of targets that London had? Again,
I think close. I don't
know.
London
had a bunch of targets, man.
Yeah.
He's been the target a lot, but I think Courtland Sutton is underrated across the league. I do, because the quarterback situation the last couple of years, coming off an injury, and he still had 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. Last year, that's a really good year. I think Sutton is underrated.
London with 110 targets, Sutton with 90. So 20 more there. Yep, that's a significant amount.
And they were close in yards. It was like 780 to 980, and Sutton blew him away on touchdowns, probably 10-2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that Wilson did pretty well. That Sutton-Wilson connection was interesting. I think it's no wonder that Sutton's trying to cash in now, because you don't know how it's going to be with next.
I still don't even think, I don't consider it cashing in. I just think he doesn't want to play on a week-to-week contract for 2 years.
Yeah. Understandable. Other guys who are underrated, I mean, if he was still here, I probably would have said Josie Jewell. We're going to see what that linebacker position looks like this season without the sure level play that you got from Jewell. Underwhelming, but steady, right? I think he got paid on the open market pretty well for a linebacker, and that's a third contract for somebody who's had some injuries. I think he was underrated, and we're going to see what that spine of that defense looks like without him. The other one that comes to mind for me, two others, Scott, even though he might be out because of contract and just how the position is, I think Pirine might be a little underrated for Denver because the pass protection. I mean, what they were able to do last season in that breakdown offense and just get the ball to Pirine, there was a few games where he was the offense in those second half down the stretch, getting the dump offs and made something out of nothing. The pass protection, the pass game in general, I think his impact last season made him underrated. We'll see what he does this season. Again, you have young guys in here, and it's a young man's game. They'll always take the young, cost-controlled guy over the old vet if they can. That's just how it works. The other one who comes to mind for me being underrated has got to be Zach Allen.
That's where I was going to go next.
Yep, from a national perspective, inside, outside, with a little bit of more beef and run stopping, hopefully up front this season. A little bit more flexibility and depth on the defensive line. Hopefully Allen can shine a little bit more. He's also still a really young player for the Broncos as well, so hopefully he steps up and is even more impactful this season. But he was good last year for Denver. Good player. He is, I think, underrated from a national perspective. I don't think he's Pro Bowl level, but he's at like next tier under where he's like the bowl of very good players, right? And maybe even Pro Bowl, ascending still. Played edge at Boston College, starting to make that transition more interior. So we'll see what he does, but he's definitely out there.
Yeah, that was my last one as far as the underrated, overrated goes. We didn't talk overrated.
No, we can say that another time.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
We want to talk positives.
Yeah. A lot of people are tired of the negative stuff, which, I mean, we'll talk some of it sometimes when it's, the headline, but not always. But guys, we're going to get on out of here. Thank you so much to our Stargazers, Michael Ronquillo, Gary Palmer, you guys keeping the lights on. Make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle and at, BFB Football Pod.
_pod. BFB _ pod.
Yep. Follow us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share over on YouTube. Scott, a lot of fun today. We'll see you again Wednesday morning, same time, same place. But until then, you guys continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.